Namaste and good morning, everyone. We'll start our class with the opening prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now we'll chant together Mahamrityunjay mantra 3 times to pray for those who are in suffering. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam iva bandhana mrityormukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukam iva bandhana mrityormukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukam iva bandhana mrityormukshiyamamrutat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone to our scripture class. We have so far completed 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Today we will do the 5th verse. And as you can see the verse here, 5th verse, it consists of 11 syllables in each quartet, and therefore it is a meter, it's a different meter than what we were doing so far. It's a Trishtum meter. Exactly, if you look at the same verses here, there are 11 syllables, and syllable is centered around a vowel. So 11 syllables in every line or every quartet. So the way it is chanted is slightly different than the one which is chanted the 8 letters. So again, today I would invite anybody who wants to volunteer for chanting along and chant with me. So can you please raise your hands in the Zoom, and then I can unmute your mic, one of yours, and you can chant along with me. So, all right. So Sankalpananji, I have unmuted you. So I'll chant and you repeat after me. Gurun hatva hi mahanubhavan
Gurun hatva hi mahanubhavan
Shreyo bhoktum bhekshamapi haloke
Shreyo bhaktum bhaikshyamahi haloke
Hatvartha kamastu guruni haiva
Hatva tokamamstu gurun heva
Bhunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan.
Unjiya bhogan rudira pradiktan.
Now we'll chant the whole verse together and you can chant along with me. Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan Shreyo bhoktum bhekshamapi haloke Hatvartha kamastu guru nihaiva Bhunjiya bhogan rudra pradigdhan. Thank you. So we'll go with the meanings, word analysis. So first let us see the type of words. So it's a nominal. Ahatva is indeclinable. He is indeclinable. Mahanubhavan is nominal. Shreya is nominal. Bhoktum is indeclinable. Bheksham is nominal. Api is indeclinable. Iha is indeclinable. Loka is nominal. Hatva is indeclinable. Arthkaman is nominal. Tu is indeclinable. Gurun is nominal. Iha is indeclinable. Eva is indeclinable. Bhunjiya is verb. Bhogan nominal. Rudhir Pradagdhan is nominal. So we see there is only one verb, means the whole sentence, whole verse is actually a one sentence. Then this is the case. So this is accusative. Gurun. Guru is the word. Accusative plural masculine. So guru, gurun. Base word here is guru. And meaning, of course, you all know guru. It's the same word in English has come from Sanskrit, guru. Ahatva. So here the word is hatva. It's an indeclinable. And it has, if you put the akara before it, it becomes negation and becomes not. So hatva means having killed. Ahatva means not having killed. He is also indeclinable. It means indeed. Mahanubhavan, it is the same as accusative plural masculine. And here the base word is Mahanubhava. So it's made of two words. It's a compound word, Mahan and Anubhava. Anubhava means the person of a dignity. Mahanubhava means person of great dignity. Shreya, it's a nominative, singular, neuter, and the base word here is, we haven't studied in our Sanskrit classes yet, this one, it's a Shreyas, and meaning here is better, good or better. Bhoktum, it's an indeclinable. So for indeclinable, we'll only have the meaning. There is no case or tense or anything. So bhoktum means to eat. Bhakshyam, it's a nominal. It's a accusative, singular, neuter. And here the base word is bhakshya. So bhiksha is the word which means to beg, the act of begging. That is called bhiksha. And bhaksha means one which is attained by begging. So the food attained by begging, that is called bhaksha, bhakshyam. And here you can say in English alms. Basically the food attained by begging, that is bhakshyam. Api is indeclinable. Its meaning is even, also. Iha means here. Loke, this is nominal, and this is nominative. Sorry, not nominative, locative, singular, masculine. And the word here is loka. Loka is refers to the world, the world. Hatva. So here the word is ahatva. You see, it's an indeclinable, not having killed. Hatva means having killed. So actual, as I told you, that hatva is the word and ahatva is the negation of that. So having killed. Artha kaman. So if you see Mahanubhavan, Artha kaman, it kind of gives you an idea that they are related, like at least grammatically. So if it is accusative plural masculine, then this also should be accusative plural masculine. Artha kaman. And so Artha kama is the base word, just like Mahanubhava, Artha kama. It's a compound word, Artha and Kama. Artha is, so these are the fourfold goals of human life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma is righteousness. Artha is the security, money or anything which provides you some security. Security and pleasure. Kama is pleasure. So security and pleasure. Tu means on the contrary, on the other hand. Gurun, we have already covered this, Gurun. So we can just take from here. Iha means here, again this word is repeating here. Eva, it's also indeclinable. It means indeed, even. So as you see, some of this, like here, api also means this thing. So this, he also means indeed. So there is like different words can be used, and many of these indeclinables, they can be used interchangeably in different contexts, as well as they can be used as fillers or just for emphasis. Bhunjiya, this is a verbal form, and this is a optative, Bedhiling Lakara. It's the first person form, that is I, first singular, and sorry, verb type is Atmanepadi, and root is Bhuj. Meaning is to enjoy. It also means to eat. Bhogan, as you see, Arthakaman, Bhogan, they are very much similar kind words, and it is indeed accusative plural masculine. And here the base word is bhoga, and this means objects of enjoyment. Object of enjoyment. Rudhira pradigdhan. So this is again the same kind of word, accusative plural masculine. And the base word is Rudhira pradigdha. It's made of two words, Rudhira and pradigdha. Rudhira means blood, and pradigdha means besmeared or stained or soaked in blood. So it would be besmeared with blood, or blood stained, like in English we say blood stained or blood soaked, something like that. So these are our words. So here, if you remember what Arjuna is saying in the previous verses, so the context was that Arjuna is lamenting. He is lamenting and dejected by the fact that he has to kill his gurus in order to win the fight. This war is not like any ordinary war where there are clear definition of somebody's enemy and then you have to fight and kill them. Here are his own people on both sides. And he sees that no matter what the outcome, it's a lose-lose situation. When he ponders over this, thinks about it, he sees that what a great problem this particular war is. And he pours his heart out to Krishna, Lord Krishna, as his chariot driver. And then he drops his bow and arrow and just sits dejected in the middle of the chariot. Then Lord Krishna just exhorts him that what kind of, he uses some very strong words, what kind of delusion have come to you in this odd hour? This is not befitting a noble person. And he says, do not go to this unmanliness. This is not again befitting you. So he exhorts him and scolds him in quite strong words. And Arjuna in the verse 2:4, he sort of reacts. He said, look, how can I fight with them? How will I fight back Bhishma and Drona in the battle with arrows? These two are actually indeed worthy of worship. They are not to be fought with arrows. Then in this, he is giving a little bit justification that what outcomes are there. So on the one hand, he is saying not killing gurus, the persons those who are persons of great dignity. So Gurun is accusative plural masculine and Mahanubhavan is accusative plural masculine, means Mahanubhavan is the adjective to Gurun. So he's saying gurus who are the persons of great dignity. That's what it would mean. Shreya, it is better to eat alms, to even eat the alms in this world. So here in the world. On the contrary, having killed the gurus, I would only be, so this is the verb is in the first singular, so means I would, and it's a vidhiling. So bhunjiya means I would enjoy. So I would enjoy the objects of enjoyments. What kind of objects of enjoyment? One which is of the nature of security and pleasure, and one which is besmeared with blood. So in the end, if I go this route, then I would only attain as a result some sense objects, some objects of enjoyment. That will be the only thing my gain would be. And that gain itself is besmeared with blood, blood of my relatives, blood of my gurus. So let us see the translation. So if you look at here, Arthaka Bhogan, so this is a technique to understand the Sanskrit verses in many cases. If you see something in the same case, same number, same gender, they could be the adjective and one could be the noun. So here you see Arthakaman, Gurun, Bhogan, and Rudhira Pradigdhan. So even though Gurun is also in the same case, it's the Arthakaman, Bhogan, and Rudhir Pradigdhan. They are adjective and the noun relationship. And Gurun is the object of this word, having killed. So I'll come to that a little bit more. And I said that it's only one verb here. That means it will get into the one sentence, but we can split it into two, and the two sentence would be here, that this one. So gurun ahatva hi mahanubhavan bhoktum shreya bhoktum bhaksham api eha loke. It is better. So let's try that. So here the shreya, the asti, the verb can be assumed asti, the implied verb. So let's say not having killed the gurus, the persons of great dignity, it is better to even eat the alms in this world. So of course, English sentence, my English may not be the best, and it can be restructured in a manner which makes best sense in English. So this is the idea, that not having killed the gurus who are the persons of great dignity, it is better to even eat the alms in this world. Iha loke, in this world. On the contrary, or on the other hand, I would, having killed the gurus, I would only enjoy the objects of enjoyments which are of the nature of security and pleasure, and these would be besmeared with blood. So Arjuna is putting two possibilities here. So if you remember, first he clearly was in the favor of not having this war at all. He just recounted all the negative things which will happen as a result of this war in the first chapter. And then when he became silent, Lord Krishna says, what kind of unmanliness are you going to? What kind of delusion you are having at this time? Just give this weakness and get up. That means get up to fight. So here, first Arjuna sort of reacted that how is it possible? Then at least, so you see how the words of and Lord are making slowly an impression upon Arjuna. And in the future, further verses, we will further see that how it is changing Arjuna's thinking so much that he finally becomes a disciple and surrenders to Lord, realizing his own mistakes and problems. So here he is considering both aspects now, at least. So at least because Lord has asked him to fight, he cannot just discount that possibility anymore, because he has so much faith in the Lord Krishna that even though his own heart is set for not fighting, he cannot just discount the possibility that Lord is asking to fight. So how can I just say it's wrong? So he says, look, there are two possibilities, that we have the war and I kill the gurus, or I desist from this war and not kill the gurus. So not killing the gurus, what will happen? If I do desist from the war, what will happen? So he's giving the logic that, well, if I don't fight this war, I will not get the kingdom, which is my righteous kingdom. So that will happen. That means I will not have a proper means to sustain myself. It can even go to so bad that I have to survive on alms, by begging the food. Even if that happens, that is better than killing the gurus. On the other hand, let's say it's the second possibility. He's telling Lord Krishna that I go with your suggestion that we'll have this war. Then the result would be that I have to kill my gurus. And what will be the end result of that? It will be that I would get the kingdom. I would get a lot of pleasures and comforts. But that's all. And those pleasures and comfort, I will always see them besmeared with the blood of my gurus, and I will never be able to find the peace while enjoying those creature comforts or the kingdom. So now he's putting his logic in such a manner that two possibilities, that I go with the war and kill the gurus, and I desist from the war, do not go for the war, do not kill the gurus, and then I consider, he's saying, I consider that this is better. Now if you look at the Sanskrit words here, so gurun is actually, I was telling you that gurun hatva, so that's why the Rudhira Pradigdhan Arthakaman Bhogan, these are the adjectives, because they are, so any second case words you see, they should be coming as the object of the verb. And here these words are the object of the verb bhunjiya. This is the verb. But gurun, it's actually, even though hatva is indeclinable, it's not a verb, but it's coming from han dhatu, means to kill, and it's a participle form. We haven't studied participle in our Sanskrit course yet, but we will be studying. So it's a participle form, and it can also take the object, even though it's not the, technically speaking, a verb form, but it serves the function of the verb. So gurun hatva. So that's why the gurun cannot be the adjective to the bhoga. But here, because in the poem you can change the order of the words, in Sanskrit allows that. So some commentators have come up with this possibility that what if artha kaman is the adjective of gurun instead of bhogan. You see, both are in the second plural masculine. So artha kaman, this word can be the adjective to the gurus. What would that mean? Would in this case is the meaning would be not security and pleasure, but kama means to want and artha means security. So one who wants the security, one who wants the money. So one he is very greedy, and one who is looking for the money as the end of his pursuits. So good. So another aspect is like some commentators have said that Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that, look, you are saying these are the gurus, but they are willing to fight you. They are not saying that how can I fight my disciple, my dear disciple. And not only are they willing to fight with you, the only reason that they say they love you and you love them, they are fighting on the behalf of other party, why not on your side, is because Duryodhana has given them, the other party has given them a lot of money. And they are for the sake of money, because Dronacharya was a teacher of archery, and Bhishma, even though he was not for the money, but because of his vows, he was fighting on behalf of Kauravas. So Lord Krishna is saying here the word is gurun, so it's a plural, it's not just these two, even though Bhishma and Drona are the main persons in Arjuna's mind, but there were many other people, whom Krupacharya, for example, with whom he learned, and others also. So he's saying that, look, most of these people, they are for the sake of money, they are supporting Duryodhana. So what is the harm in killing them? So that is one aspect, but most of the people, most of the commentators, some commentators have taken this aspect that artha kaman would become the gurun, adjective of gurun. That means these are the gurus who are seeking the security and money. But most of the commentators have suggested that it be taken the adjective of bhogan. So that's how you can see in Sanskrit, if you understand that how is it possible to have multiple meanings in a verse. So, and both of them in a way are grammatically correct. You cannot say one is less correct than the other, grammatically speaking. But because Arjuna is using this adjective Mahanubhavan, Gurun, in the first part of the verse, the persons of great dignity, it is unlikely that he would use this adjective Artha Kaman for Gurun in the second part of the same verse. So that is just a little bit of a play on the words here. Another thing, if you look at here, Arjuna is saying that it's better to even eat the alms in this world, because one has to sustain oneself. So there are, again, you can understand this meaning that he's thinking that, okay, if I desist from the war, because this war is a righteous war, for the sake of not killing the gurus, if I desist from the war, do not fight, that would be a adharma, like Lord Krishna is saying, that this, the act which you are thinking, it's a good thing. It's actually something which will not take you to heaven. It will not give you the glory, and it's not fitting for the noble people. So he's saying, okay, that is one thing. And on the other side, if I have to sustain myself, I may be even reduced to begging alms, which is, for the person of Arjuna's class, he was a Kshatriya, he was a warrior class. That was forbidden by the scriptures to sustain oneself by begging the alms. So Arjuna is saying that, okay, both options may be not befitting for me. But given the options that it's in killing the guru versus not killing the guru, I consider it better to even go that route, that if I have to even beg the alms. So that is one part of it. Another part of this sentence is that bhaksham is the food attained by begging. And only two kind of people were permitted by scriptures in the ancient society to sustain themselves by begging. So one is Brahmin. If somebody is a Brahmin, he is only pursuing the knowledge and teaching the society. So society, sort of, the scriptures had given him a leeway that, okay, you don't have to worry about your living, that where to get the money. You can ask, you can beg for it, and you can sustain yourself, because he is doing a very noble thing for the society. So there were grants given, and some Brahmins, they were actually going to beg, and sometimes they were just getting some grants or those kind of things from people to study and to teach. Another section of society which was allowed to sustain themselves by begging was the monks. So monks do not work. Again, monks have the sole objective of attaining the self-realization and help others along the way. Because of such a noble and goal, society had given them that, okay, you can just, because monks also have given up their rights on any comforts or anything. So because they are giving up the rights, they are not having any duty to sustain a family or to have a job, they can sustain themselves by begging. So Arjuna, when he's saying it's better to sustain by begging, he is referring to that he cannot become a Brahmin, because the caste at that time is decided by the birth. So he is born as Kshatriya. He will not become a Brahmin. But he can become a sannyasi, he can become a monk. And he can sustain himself by begging the food. So that is another thing which he is pointing here, that I cannot take the path of adharma if I do not. So in order not to fight the battle, because a monk is not supposed to be fighting a battle, he is only supposed to fight the internal battles, not the external war, etc. So if I, as a Kshatriya, but this was Arjuna's duty to fight a righteous war, and he says, okay, I don't want to take the path of adharma. If I go for this style that I become a monk, then I can give up this war. I don't have, that will be justified for me to give up this war. So you are saying, like he's telling Lord Krishna, that you are saying it will be something which will not give me the glory, not give me the heaven. So that will not be applicable, because I'm following the dharma. And as a result of that, I would have to sustain myself by begging, and which is fine, because I consider that better. So that is another aspect that commentators have pointed out, that Arjuna is referring to here to adopt a lifestyle of a monk. So with this, I would take the questions. So there is a question, why is Hatva indeclinable? It denotes action. Are there similar indeclinables? Yes, that's a category of participles. Some participles are indeclinables and some are not. We'll study those more in detail for those who are attending the Sanskrit course. There's a question, is wealth a better meaning for artha? So here the artha kaman. So generally artha means the wealth, money or wealth. That's how in general it is used in the language. But in Sanskrit, when we use this as the fourfold goals of life, artha is more generally referred to anything which gives you the security. So wealth gives the security, so wealth is an artha. Even the we call the stocks market securities, because that gives some security apparently to people who are having. So you could be having many contacts among people, and that gives you the security that I have so many contacts, so people can come to help me in if anything happens to me. So that's a security. So all that is artha, that whatever gives me a sense of security, that is artha. So there is a question, I see bhoktum is to eat, similar to hatva and indeclinable. Yes, the same thing. Bhoktum is also an indeclinable, it's a participle form which serves the function of the verb. It's an infinitive kind of word in English. So in English, like when you say it is better to eat, you see is the verb here. It is better, and to eat is the infinitive. In English, it's the same concept in English, that there is a participle which serves the purpose of the verb, but it's not a verbal form. It's not a form of the verb. What is the subject in the second sentence of this shloka 2.5? Is it implied as Arjuna? So the second sentence here is, I would only enjoy, because this verb, you see, bhunjiya, it is the first person singular. It can always have the subject only as I. So I is the subject here. So Arjuna is talking and he is saying I. So I is the subject. There's a question, Shreyas meaning is best. So the word Shreyas, which is the base form, and I have put the meaning here is better. It can also mean best, good or better or best. It can depending upon the context. Here, because he's comparing, it is better. Generally, the better is the more appropriate, but sometimes it can be used in the sense of best also. Okay, so these are all the questions. Okay, I get some more questions now. So there is a question from someone, Baba, at the end, is Arjuna going to fight or not? I hope you know Mahabharata story, and Arjuna does indeed fight, and Lord's teachings do not go waste. And if you read the whole Bhagavad Gita, it's very beautiful that how Arjuna is asking the different questions and Lord is answering those questions. And finally, it is not that he just obeying Lord's command, because Lord in the end says that do whatever you think, but do whatever you want. I have told you everything what is I had to tell you, and now you decide and do whatever you want. Then Arjuna says that now my delusion is gone and I am ready to do what you want. There is a question, how do we choose the melody for chanting the different meters in Gita? There is, so the different meters, they do have different melody. Bhagavad Gita only has 2 meters, and you can hear the chanting. The one of the links I have provided. So this is the repository link, and if you go to scripture, there is a other study material, and here I have provided a document called useful links. So there is a link of online resources related to Bhagavad Gita. So here there is a audio, Gita audio. So you can actually hear the audio of different verses to get an idea. How does it change? There are like different traditions which chant slightly differently, Gita verses, but the meters are only 2 types, and they will have distinct way of chanting and splitting. There's a question, may I ask, what were the primary reason of war between Arjuna and his relatives? Who was the challenger? Okay, so this is related to the story of Mahabharata, where it's a long story, as I told you that in the first class. If you really want to understand it detail, Guruji has written a book of Mahabharata, which all the whole story which finally leads to Gita and the war and Gita. So in this case, it is simply that there were 2 cousins in the same clan, and one of them cheated the others and refused to give them their shares. And in in a nutshell, that is the reason for the war. But it's a very long story and very interesting and very captivating story. Okay, there is a question, how does the verb is come about when there is only one verb? So is implied here. As I told you, Shreya is the nominative singular. That means it is the subject. It is better. So Shreya is the nominative singular and is implied here. Shreya asti. So if I have to say asti, then that's how it would be. Shreya asti. So as the verbs of the type of to be, they can be implied in Sanskrit. They do not have to be explicitly mentioned. So that's how it is. Okay, so somebody has sent me this link, gitachanting.net. I'll share with everybody just to make sure that everybody gets it. You can probably, I haven't checked it, but probably this is the one where you can see the Gita chanting. Okay, there is a question. Why is Krishna encouraging Arjuna to go for war? War of any kind is not good. So it's a very interesting question, and it's a question which comes to mind to many people, that Arjuna is trying to desist from the war. He is giving all the reasons why war is not good. And Lord Krishna, who is incarnation of Dharma, it's considered, because he is the incarnation of Lord himself. He is on the other hand telling Arjuna to fight. So one thing you have to understand, because of the context, Lord is telling him to fight. Essentially, Lord is not encouraging the war. He is encouraging the duty. At that time, in that moment, Arjuna's duty happens to fight. That was his righteous duty. And Arjuna was trying to give up his duty. So when you see in Gita that Lord is asking Arjuna to fight, that is based upon the context. And the idea is that one should not give up the correct duty. And how can war be a duty? Think about it. If somebody attacks our country and the army is ready, general is ready, and he is going to the war front, and at the last moment he gets this idea that what's the point of war? Let us just return and let the enemy take our territory. Do you think that you will like that general? So war is also a righteous duty in certain cases. In general, war is not a preferable thing, and Pandavas made all the attempts to avoid the war, but the other party simply would not budge. They would only want the war. So in that case, the war also becomes a righteous duty. But just to be clear, Lord Krishna is not encouraging the war here. What he is encouraging Arjuna to fulfill, to perform his duty. Okay, there is a comment here. In this dispute between Arjuna and Lord Krishna, Arjuna has proven himself as compassionate and wise. He is also brave and courageous. From what we see, he only gave up the attack, not the defense. The verse said Arjuna put down his bow, his weapon, to attack from distance. As great warrior, he would not miss his target. The verse did not say Arjuna put down his sword, his weapon, to fight face to face to defend himself. So that is of course not correct. Think about it. That Arjuna is a warrior. He is an archer, and any weapon he is using is both for defense and attack. So it's not that I will defend but not attack. You talk to anybody who fight, and they will tell you that it doesn't work that way. So there's a comment that Krishna has tried to avoid this war. So this is the thing. Actually, I told you that Pandavas made all the efforts to avoid the war, and as a last resort, Krishna himself goes to Kaurava's side as a messenger of peace and tells them that, look, it's not because of the weakness we do not want the war. There are great warriors in this side, and you will be the final sufferer. But just for the sake of peace and prosperity, we do not want this war. So even if you give just the 5 villages instead of the whole kingdom, we will not go for the war. And Duryodhana says, not even the land equivalent to even a needle's point I will give without the war. So such kind of things. So a lot of things happen, and if you read the whole story of what it leads, if it at all, it is not that Krishna is encouraging for the war. So it is just understand always that it's primarily the duty which you have to perform, and giving up the duty itself, no matter sometimes it could be very unpleasant duty of going to the war, it's the giving up the duty which is Lord is saying should not be done. So there is a question, there is a comment, or more than rivalry between cousins, can be described as fight between Deva and Danava Guna, like fight between the good and evil. So that becomes a metaphorical, and many people have taken that route to explain Gita, that it's not an actual war which is being talked about here. It is the inner war between the divine qualities and devilish qualities, which is going on inside every human being. So as I told you, that there is a metaphorical aspect of Bhagavad Gita and there is a historical aspect of Bhagavad Gita. So if you take from the metaphorical aspect, that war can be understood as the war which a seeker is waging within himself, and Lord Krishna is telling seeker not to give up that fight. So but there is also this historical aspect, and here I'm just basically explaining from the simple verse explanation perspective, but from a metaphorical aspect, that's another kind of explanation which many teachers have provided. There's a comment, same is like in any game, for example soccer, defend and attack. Yes. Okay, there is a comment here. If Pandavas and Kurus didn't have the war, we won't have the Bhagavad Gita today. The conversation between Krishna and Arjuna is meant for us. It's a beautiful sentiment. So with this, we will close the class, and next time we will. So if you have any questions, you can read the verse in advance, whether the questions related to Sanskrit or questions related to verse in particular, like philosophical or spiritual questions, and then I can clarify those points. So you can even send us an email in advance. That is also fine. If you have any question on the, so next time, for example, we would be covering 2.6 and maybe 2.7. So you can read those two verses. We have a file in the repository. So here, like if you go to the repository, there is, I hope everybody has the access to the repository. We are putting the class videos here, and we are putting the verse analysis files here. And this is the scriptures course, Gita 2nd chapter 2. So this file you can download and you can read. So it has the words split as well as the translation. So you can look at this one. If you have any Sanskrit related questions or is philosophical questions related to the verse, please send us in the email in advance. That will be good also. That way I can cover those points in the class. So thank you everybody, and we'll do the closing prayers. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.